So for the last session for our Monet tulip fields, you're going to use red and pretty much any other color except for green and do some tulips. Now we've already got the tulips in the front, and we're going to paint those first, and then we're going to kind of suggest flowers in the back. Now one of the things about this is that your painting has to be totally dry. Any of this field here where we're going to put in flowers has to be totally dry. It can't be damp. It has to be totally dry. Then what you're going to do is you're going to start with your brush, and you're going to get you start with red and a couple colors, and you can kind of mix the colors up if you want. But you want to get your paint to be nice and moist here, and then you're going to do that same trick where you can bend your brush a little bit and get some of the paint on your brush and try to soak the water out a little bit, and just get it on the tip of your brush and try to make sure that your brush has a nice tip to it so that when you start painting you have good control over where your brush is going to be. And what you want to do is paint in each of these flowers. Now the Sharpie line in there is going to kind of suggest for whoever's looking at it what it is and where the lines are in it. But what you want to do is you want to paint it so you can still see those Sharpie lines, but at the same time you can see the wonderful color in a tulip. I'm going to use this orange and paint some orange tulips. Now you don't want your water paint to be too watery, and if it is, you can use an extra paper towel to squish it down and blot it up so it doesn't get too wet. You really want to control the wetness of your brush so you don't have paint dribbles all over the place or paint that's just out of control. Alright, and you can use the edge of your brush to kind of fill some of those areas in. I'm going to do 4 orange ones, and I'm going to start some yellow ones. And you know, you could make it a pattern if you want. You don't have to, but any colors that you use in the front are going to be repeated in the background, and we're going to have to show you how to do that when the time comes. But you want to make sure that you have nice colored, neatly drawn and neatly painted tulips in the foreground, so that when we suggest them in the background, the viewers know what they're looking at and expect, oh, there's a tulip, rather than what is that blob in the background. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to get some purple because I like purple tulips. They have these beautiful like lavender tulips. Purple is a really tough color to be gentle with because it's so dark. So make sure that when you do it, you're ready with a paper towel to blot some of it out. Okay, and blotting looks like just gently, quickly pressing down on it so you see it still, and you get some of the white paper from underneath. Okay, and I'm going to have to get some more water here. And again, purple's a really hard color to work with because it's so dark and thick. Even if you have it pretty watery, it's dark and thick. So I'm going to again blot it with a paper towel so it's not so dark. And notice how I control the water on my paintbrush every time by testing it on my paper towel first. That's good control, is to know what you're doing and know how much water you want on your brush. You gotta just go slow and work with it here. Good. So we got our tulips in the front there. And the next part here is suggesting them in the background. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take some red just on the tip of our brush. Again, we don't want it to be too wet, so I'm just going to twist it on my paper towel. And my paper towels are so actually super soaked here that I'm going to get a couple new ones. Okay, and you want to point your brush into a nice little point and soak the water out the back and get it just on the tip. Okay, you can kind of see it right on the tip. And then we're going to just suggest in the back. Watch this. We're just going to hold the brush straight up and down, and we're going to suggest these in the background. Be careful not to make them look too much of a pattern. You don't want them all in a neat little row in the background. You want some of them to be bigger, some of them to be smaller. Make sure that when you get more paint, you kind of rotate your brush on your paper towel to get a little tip at the front of your brush. If you need to, you can use a detail brush for this. But make sure your paint isn't sticky and gooey, because if it's sticky and gooey, it's too much paint, too thick paint, and you won't have a nice look at the end. So here's our little tulips in the background. You just have to be careful and do little teensy dots. Of course, they should get smaller and lighter as you get away from the front. And I would say do it up about 3 fingers. Okay, and then start with a new color, and you're going to have to add in all the colors that you used in the front. Let's start some orange here. And for this, you have to really have your paper totally dry. If you don't, the watercolors will all run together, and it'll make it kind of a sloppy, multicolored, smushy mess. And you really want to have nice little dots with all the different colors to them. And you want to have a nice variety of colors, a nice variety of shapes. Now in the background, closer to the windmill, is where we're going to get a little bit of the red. Want it to be really thin and watery. Gonna have to dump out my container here. Get some thin, watery red. And kind of do a gentle wash over the background. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, this is where you're gonna get some red. And you're gonna wash it in the back. Horizontally. And take a paper towel and blot it out. And this is going to make kind of the far away look like fields in the background, different flowers in the background. And so there you go. There is your finished, oops, almost finished. Don't forget the green stems, Mr. Lundgren. And if you want to, right at the end here is the last little skill. Get your brush full, dry it out, scrunch the tip out, so that it's nice and flat and kind of squished apart, and then drag it across the front here to make little grass-like texture. Alright, and there is your finished Monet watercolor painting.